This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, Relmar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Science of Magic, a place where science and magic come together to transform fact into evolving truth. We're coming to you through the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net, and can also be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring cryptid cupids, or cryptic cupids. A cupid is an animal whose existence has been suggested but not discovered or documented by science. Cryptids often appear in folklore and mythology, leading to stories and beliefs about their existence. Examples of these mysterious beings are the Yeti in the Himalayas, the Loch Ness Monster in Scotland, Sasquatch in North America, and the Jersey Devil in New Jersey Pine Barrens. The universal appearance of cryptids in every world culture and across the ages suggests there's more to these supposedly mythological animals than meets the eye. I would even suggest that cryptids are at the same time imaginary and real. Shamanically speaking, the imagination is the landscape where information of the more esoteric aspects of life and from the quantum level is represented in metaphorical form. This information is picked up by the subconscious mind in what we may call our sixth sense. In order to make sense to the logical, linear mind, it's translated through the imagination as a metaphor. Many metaphors are universal within cultures. Examples would be the Celtic Green Man and the Native American nature spirits. The natural elements interact with the world through their electromagnetic or toroidal fields. These toroidal fields are often photographed near running water or around fire, appearing as orbs. Their frequency is also represented in the imagination as water sprites or fire spirits. Each individual element has a distinctive energy matrix or frequency that human registers with the subconscious or sixth sense. This matrix is then represented in the imagination as a metaphor often found in the culture of the individual. Some believe these archetypal metaphors run in our genealogy through imprints on our DNA. Thus, an individual need not have prior knowledge of a particular metaphor to present itself. This would explain the amazingly similarity of alleged sightings. Energy matrices can form composites, resulting in more complex metaphors. We've all had the experience of waking up in the middle of the night and seeing what looks and feels exactly like someone in the room, but upon closer examination proves to be a shadow. What most of us don't realize is there may very well have been a disembodied spirit in the room, or we may be picking up someone thinking about us, which in the imagination often translates as a visual manifestation. I believe this is why, though many have cited Bigfoot, his corporeal existence has yet to be proven. I also suspect many alien sightings are metaphorical in nature. That's not to say the energy or spirit is not present, just that it may or may not be in purely physical form. We've been taught to discredit information coming through the imagination to our detriment. There's ever so much more vital information about the world around us than we perceive through the five senses. This more esoteric information can be received through our imagination and represented in our imagination. The key is to accurately interpret and mentally process what we perceive. As adults, we have to relearn how to use and listen to our imagination in order to see beyond the very limited reality of the five senses. One of the greatest gifts we can give our children is to help them decode what they see with their young and very active imaginations, thus encouraging rather than discrediting them. In so doing, we may discover our children have much more to teach us about the hidden sides of life. Our guest this hour, Wendy Terrien, received her first library card at age 2 and a few years later started writing down her own stories. Her debut novel, The Rampart Guards, is a #1 bestseller and the first in her urban fantasy series. Inspired by an episode of Bones wherein a suspected killer was thought to be a fabled creature, Wendy drove into research about cryptozoology, the study of animals that may or may not exist, or cryptids. Poring over stories, videos, and photographs of creatures others had seen all over the world, Wendy developed her own story to share with middle-aged, middle grade, young adult, and grown-up readers. Wendy graduated from the University of Utah and transplanted to Colorado, where she completed her MBA at the University of Denver. While working in finances, the network security industry's guidances from a career coach helped her fully engage her passion in writing. After this commercial break, I'll introduce Wendy, and together we'll introduce the not-so-unreal of cryptids and the exciting landscape of childhood imagination. So don't go away. You're listening to The Science of Magic. Prior innovative episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people who stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, PhD, is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
Shamanism is recognized as a method to access the quantum level. Mastery of shamanic skills puts spiritual information and healing power into your hands. Path Home Shamanic Art School, a bonded Colorado certified occupational school, has met rigorous state standards, ensuring its director and instructors have the qualifications to teach the shamanic arts. Path Home offers its certification program in blocks of study. Block 1, a 5-day intensive, will be held in the beautiful mountain town of Coaldale, Colorado, October 13th through 18th. Registration deadline is September 12th. Experience journey trance, power animals, helping spirits, sacred space, and life purpose. Come discover your power. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, in the magical world of shamanism. Call 303-775-3431 or visit findyourpathhome.com.
With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com.
Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Wendy Terrien, author of The Rampart Guards. Her website, www.wendyterrien.com. That's WendyTerrien.com. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us on The Science of Magic.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Of course. You've been writing stories all your life. What do you think is the most important thing about storytelling?
You know, for me, personally, it's a whole new way for me to connect with a different kind of energy that's out there. I don't actually feel like I'm writing these stories just from my head. I think there's other things going on that I'm tapping into, and that's feeding through me. It's really energizing, and it gives me the opportunity to be someplace else and explore someplace else and meet new characters. And I hope it does that for the readers as well, because I know when I've read a book that I love, I immerse myself and I just love being there. And it takes you kind of out of the real world and gives you a break from other stresses or just things we have to deal with. And it's just fun.
Do you hold your future readers in mind when you get ready to write a story, or do you just tap in somewhere?
Kind of a combination. So with the Rampart Guards, it started, as you mentioned, about bones. That just came out of a TV show. So here I am saying you should watch TV because you can write a novel, which is great, right? You're just open to these things. But I think, I also think about the audience, because some of the messages in my book about family or about the world around us, I hope that they feel like there's other things happening and there's things that are okay that might not feel okay. And so I do think about all that stuff.
So do I hear you saying that in your stories you intend to express things that other people might be going through, children might be going through, to not exactly normalize it, but to make them feel less isolated?
Absolutely, yes.
All right. Where do you think your stories are coming from, Wendy?
Gosh, that's such a good question. Obviously you'd say the imagination, but I think most of the world thinks of the imagination as, again, our own little world. But as you've taught, and I've learned from you, and in the lesson you just gave in this show, imagination is such more than that, and brings us to a whole other place. It goes back to me saying, too, that I think I'm not the only one writing this story. I feel like there's other things happening that I'm a conduit for a lot of it and feeding that forward.
Mm-hmm. What do you see as the value of a healthy imagination?
I think it's a great tool for us to figure out how to meet life's challenges. So not only is it a great way to be creative, but it kind of goes along with when someone says, hey, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. That's great, right? You're already thinking about a situation in a different way and how to make it better. But with a really active imagination, you can take that even farther. So you can make lemon cookies, you can make lemon cake, you can make lemon chicken. I mean, there's a whole bunch of ways to deal with challenges or situations, and hopefully imagination, and a healthy one that you have working for you, will open that up in so many ways that you can find the right path in that right moment.
You know, one thing I've observed I love children, so I watch them pretty closely. One thing I've observed is they have these active imaginations and they're out playing together and they create this little world. It's almost as if they're trying out life circumstances in their imagination together before they decide what they want to create. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so I know I did that a lot outside, spent a lot of time outside and did a lot of searching and playing with insects and maybe putting them together as if they were a little family. And if one of them left, what did that do to the rest of the situation? Or if I split them up, I mean, I think you do. You play with all those things, you test them, it also gives kids an opportunity to be kind of outside and away from other stuff they might be dealing with and trying out things in a different way.
And so as adults, do you see our imagination as very important in being able to play out and design scenarios before we decide on them?
Yeah, I know it is for me. I'm afraid it doesn't work that well for everybody. I think that a lot of times people get set in the way they see the world and the way things are supposed to be, and we're told so much in society that you're supposed to act like this and you're supposed to do this in this situation and this is how you handle something else, and I think we get locked into that a lot. And it's important to think beyond that, and certainly the imagination can help us do that and hopefully open it up a little bit differently so that you aren't stuck in the same old all the time, feeling like you can't change your life.
Do you see children of today as having less imagination or having it shut down early?
You know, I've been thinking about that a little bit, and certainly that happens with video games and the tablets and electronics. And I think part of it, too, is maybe parents are doing that to them, because it seems like parents today are making a lot of decisions for their children and telling them what they should like and what lessons they should take and what sports they should play, and not letting that be open. I suspect, though, because the imagination is powerful, that there's going to be other ways for it to get around that and express itself. Or at least I hope so. I know that even with video games, there's some really interesting stories that are built into some of the video games, and certainly stories make us think about things differently or come up with new ideas. So I hope that that still is nourishing that in that sense, and that the imagination can continue to find a way to work around electronics and the other things that we're kind of pressing down on our society.
How do you see that stories and storytelling, like what we're talking about here, you know, books and storytelling, stimulate the imagination more than the TVs and the programs and games?
I think it's because when I read a book, I turn it into a movie in my head. And I actually, even though the world is being spelled out in front of me, I still create it and make it my own. So those characters, whether they're really specifically described or not, I still have my own personal imagination's picture of that person or that world that they live in, or the things that they're doing and where they're going. It's my world as much as that story's world. And I think that's really like magic. With a movie, you don't get to do any of that.
Yeah, they've already canned the characters. I remember, repeatedly, I'd read a book and the same thing would happen to me. I'd get the pictures and the way they looked and all that stuff going in my imagination, and then they'd make a movie out of it. And I was always most always dissatisfied with who they scripted the parts, because it didn't match with my fun.
Exactly. And then too, if they do that right in the book and you've really immersed yourself in that story, you want to be there. I know I would love to go to Narnia. And I want to absolutely get that letter that I'm going to Hogwarts, but it hasn't happened yet. But I believe it might someday.
Exactly.
Those are those things you just like, it becomes part of your, like, oh, I love that, and it feels really exciting and really great.
And doesn't it kind of leave you with an openness for magic to happen in your life?
Absolutely, yeah. Because, you look at like Harry Potter, and I've done a similar thing with my story, but Harry Potter, you feel like that really is true, right? There really are muggles, and there really are magic buildings around us, and Diagon Alley, and there's a Hogwarts, and there's a train that goes where we can't see it. And, it feels like it could really be real, and I love that. And I have the same kind of thing with the Rampart Guards, because I use cryptids in the story that people really believe exist. You can Google any of them. And I love the fact, too, that a lot of creatures that used to be considered cryptids have been proven to be real. So it's fun and it's exciting to think, maybe there really are skyfish flying around us right now. And maybe someday we'll find out it's real.
Yeah.
So I love
it's
it.
just amazing. You're a student of shamanism and shamanic traditions, teach with storytelling. What value do you see in this versus the lecturing or rote memorization form of teaching?
Oh, learning with a creative aspect is something that sticks with you in a more solid way, and also it's relatable back to you experience it. You can make it part of how you understand it rather than just, here's the information, you must memorize it. I don't think you really incorporate it into yourself and your mind and your knowledge if it's just fed to you. But through shamanism and using your imagination and the stories and all of that makes it so relatable, it just becomes part of us.
It's amazing, isn't it? And it's like all shamanic traditions use storytelling as the way of passing down history as well. And each story almost like becomes a compartmentalized entity unto itself. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I know from the training and the work I've done with you, a lot of that still comes back in moments that I even don't expect it. I'll have an experience and it'll immediately remind me of something that we've worked on and done. And even though that's been compartmentalized somewhere, I didn't realize it. And then suddenly here it is. And it's helping me. It's something that I go, oh, yeah, okay, I can tap into that and I can use that. And it's a great energy.
And here's the whole concept all compartmentalized in a complete story that comes to mind immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Why did you decide to write for young adults?
I'm not sure. I think it's just because that's the voice that I hear in my head, and whether that's just part of me or if that's part of the larger plan, I don't know. But I will also say that I'm also a big fan of my inner child, and I often have that inner child more as an outer child because I love games and play and silliness, and so I may be selfishly entertaining myself as much as anything.
Well, like you brought up, like with the Harry Potter series, I myself, and I know I have a lot of friends that, these were written for young adults or even for small children, but I enjoy them more than a lot of the books that are supposedly written for my age group. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, me too. And a lot of adults have read my book, and I've read a lot of those books too, and I love them. And the other adults have told me that they love this book, The Rampart Guards. So, I think it's just what's fun to read and what makes you feel good. That's what you should read, right? It doesn't really matter if it's quote unquote young adult or kids or whatever that is.
Well, I like that transitional place where you're focusing, whether by intent or design or happenstance, because it's like that bridge time when we're young adults, we aren't adults, we haven't been indoctrinated. So it's almost like you're pulling back to our childhood excitement about the imagination by bridging that storyline in that age. Do you see that helps bring it forward to the adults as well as the younger children?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Because it really is something we all can relate to. All that happened to us during that time in our lives sits with us, I think. And every time we see something that a kid on TV who's in middle school and something's happened to them, like in the news, or we can put ourselves there. immediately.
Absolutely.
So I think that's really part of us.
We're going to have to take a quick break,
really
Wendy.
works.
On the other side, we'll talk about cryptids. Wendy and I will return to our discussion after this short break. You're listening to The Science of Magic on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Previous broadcasts and thought-provoking episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. We will be back, so don't you go away.
Glow coming through the tree. I urged Mike to hurry up and get up there. Travis had the door open before we even stopped. As he got closer, I heard the sound. One of the guys said, "You feel that?" I really panicked then.
I told him, "Get the hell out of here."
It didn't come directly to me, it came to a deputy sheriff.
Three of us volunteered right away to tell him what had happened.
Sheriff Gillespie definitely didn't believe it.
He says that we better be certain because we get in a lot of trouble.
When we went to search the next day, they split us up, and the whole time the deputies asked me, if you just tell us where the body is, we can all go home and get this over with.
We're talking about 100 people combing through the wooded area. Nothing turns up.
All week long, I've been hearing they're going to set it up to make you guys look guilty.
We're a rough-looking bunch then. Some of us have been in trouble with the law before.
And y'all ain't never going to come out of that jailhouse.
We couldn't get out.
I tried to sneak out the back door the day of the polygraph test. I was scared to death.
On top of that, you have media.
I literally would be on two telephones at the same time.
We've even got some coops in here now that's coming in and out to see the freak show, as they call it.
Everyone descends.
I just wasn't going to stand there and listen to it anymore.
Granny says, "This is Travis. I'm back. I need help."
When I did hear that he had been returned, it was almost as unbelievable as the original thing.
I just looked at my mom and says, "I told you we didn't kill him."
Travis Walton reappeared after several days with a bizarre story about a ride in an unidentified flying object.
People were desperate to explain it away.
Why are you sticking up with Travis for all this time? You know this really didn't happen.
What happened to Travis after we took off in that truck, I can't tell you.
I hated Travis for a long time after this. My whole world just tore up.
But I believe every word Travis said about it. He's never lied to me about nothing. It's a net negative. We lost our jobs in the immediate aftermath.
And now you're not able to talk about it with anyone because you know that they're going to laugh at you, they're going to look at you like you're crazy.
But if you don't come out and tell your story, somebody else is going to tell it for you.
There's a degree of responsibility. Certainly I have to accept the bad. If I can direct what's happened in a way that I can make something good happen in the world, I'm looking for it.
Order your copy of Travis, The True Story of Travis Walton, today at www.traviswaltonthemovie.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money in abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Wendy Terrien, author of the Rampart Guards. Wendy, before I went into break, I promised the listeners that we were going to talk about cryptids. So would you define a cryptid for us?
Yeah, a cryptid is a creature that may or may not exist. And those would be similar to Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster.
And if we find evidence that they actually do exist and can scientifically prove it, are they no longer a cryptid?
Yeah, they're no longer a cryptid. Then they become classified in whatever they fit, whatever category.
Well, there's a lot to be said for staying as a cryptid, isn't there?
Yeah, seriously.
When did you first become familiar with cryptids?
You know, obviously we all have heard of Bigfoot and Loch Ness, I think. So I certainly knew about them ever since I was little, but I didn't realize that they fit in this group of cryptids. And it wasn't until I watched that episode of Bones, and they were investigating a murder that looked like it had been committed by a chupacabra, which I had no idea what that was. So I immediately tuned in. And then they said they needed to consult a cryptozoologist, and again, I was baffled. So I immediately started looking all these things up because I had no idea, and I was amazed at all that was out there on these creatures.
What is a cryptozoologist?
A cryptozoologist is a person that studies whether these creatures exist. So they look at the footprints people find of Bigfoot, and they investigate the videos, and they go out and search in nature for them, other signs. So they're doing all that depending on what they're investigating. It's all different.
Are they considered legitimate scientists?
No, I would say. I mean, some will say yes, and others will say no. I think that the standard scientific community would say no.
They're just a little too far out there for them, are they?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what do you think cryptids really are?
I actually think some of them are real. I go back and forth on things like Bigfoot. One of the things I love about the legends of Bigfoot are that, like, the Native Americans believe they're shapeshifters. So when they were spotted, they would just shift into something else, like a rabbit or something small and scurry off, which I love. And plus the fact that, like, the men who used to sail the seas way back when would come back and talk about these giant sea creatures that attacked their ship, and no one believed them, but then we later proved that the giant squid existed. And then other adventurers talked about these furry and fearsome men that lived high up in the mountains, and no one believed them, and later we found out the mountain gorilla exists. So I love just thinking about some of these are really out there, because they are, right?
Exactly. So how much do you think it has to do with, I think there's multi-dimensions to this, so let's dance it a little bit. How much do you think it has to do with, we see what we expect to see, and so we see something out there like a furry creature that may or not have ever been cited or spoken of before, and our mind tries to translate it into something that makes sense. How much do you think that plays in there?
I think that's tons, because even now, even me saying I really believe there could be a Bigfoot out there, I think if I actually saw one, I would try to rationalize that away, that couldn't be right, because I've been told it's not right. And two, I also know that people will think I'm crazy, and they'll judge me for that if I go and say it's true. So I think you immediately will rationalize that away, and that makes it that much more challenging to see these things out there.
Exactly. And then on the other side of this little argument coin, people that have very active imaginations and don't make a real discernment between this esoteric information that we're translating through our imagination and what's actually going on in ordinary reality can literally see what's actually a metaphor and think it's in physical reality. Do you think that plays part of it?
I do, yeah. And I think that's I think that's a harder one to get a hold of for me, just because I don't think we know when we do that, and I've probably done that. But that's a harder one to say, absolutely, I know that's true.
And I've trained myself, and I help my students train themselves to shift where our awareness is, so we know when we're dancing that edge between what's physically real and what's energetically present. And I think it's a very fine edge, and I think it's getting finer as we go on. Have you seen some of that?
I have, and even in my own work and experience, the difference for me is when I'm in the physical world, I still have a hard time doing that. If I'm focusing on being open to that, and maybe in a meditation or other state, then I get that. I can get there, but I'm still working on the more physical world.
Yeah, and that's what the disciplines of shamanism and everything else about, is being able to transition between the physical and the non-physical and get accurate information. What role do cryptids play in your latest book?
They are just like humans. There are good cryptids and bad cryptids. So they have different roles in that sense. But I also, they play a big part in changing Jason. Jason's the main character. His view of the world around him. They really shake things up, and they make him see things differently, both on a personal level with his relationships with other people, as well as just how the physical world exists around him.
Nice. If you'd have to point out a hidden meaning that you've woven into your book, or that was woven into your book, what would it be?
Probably a couple of things. One would be what we just talked about, the fact that the world around us isn't exactly as it seems, and that if we're a little more open to things, we're going to learn more and see more and experience more. We get so locked down in this is the way the world works. It's hard for people to see things differently. I think we're seeing a lot of that in some of our people who are running for president. And what's happening there. So, there's a point of view that gets stuck in people's head. More open comes in.
So it sounds like we're having connectivity problems. Wendy, can you hear me there?
I can.
Okay, good. We broke up a little bit on that one. Let's go to the next question, though. Can you tell me about heroes and heroic acts and why they do seem to be so engaging in stories? What purpose do they serve for the young reader?
I think they're just such a powerful story, and so often they come from a normal person. And, obviously, We all love to have. And with the heroic story, though, it's uplifting to see the good guys, good gals win. I think it gives hope. I think it gives balance. And you know what I love too is when we see stories here in, like on the news this week, that woman got rescued by those 4 men out of her burning car, and not one of those men said, "I consider myself a hero." I think that they consider themselves just part of the human race, and that's what you do when you do something good for someone else. You just do it, right? So, and I love that.
I do too. Do you think that children have a need to be heroic?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if it's a need to be heroic, but I think that they have a need to do what's right. I think we all do. I think we all have that. Again, when you go back to the human race, we all want to do good.
Yeah, I think we do too. And like you said, with those people, they don't know that they're being heroic. They're just doing what they feel is right at any given time. Do you think stories can expand a child's imagination and help them conceive of what they really may be capable of?
Absolutely, yes. And along the line of encouraging imagination, I think it would be great to partner that with encouraging our children to fail and be okay with that. Because I think they might have all these ideas and things they want to try, but the other message they're getting is do not fail. And so then they don't try those things, and I think that kind of stifles the imagination as well. Whereas if you try something and you fail, there's not a big deal there. You learn from it, you move on, you try something else, and you feel good about yourself for trying. I think that's the bigger, more successful part of that. You know, when I started to think about writing, part of me was very afraid to say, I want to be a writer to people. But the other part of me said, do you want to be on your deathbed and say, I never did try that and I'm really glad? Would you say that? No. You would say, I wish I had tried it even if I had failed.
Failure is such a wonderful subject. I'm glad you brought it up, because one of the troubles I've had as a parent is trying to protect my children from failure or from that kind of an experience, when indeed the time for them to fail is when they're under your wing, allowing them to expand and see what works and what doesn't work. And I think we've lost that in this culture, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's so looked down upon if you fail, and there really is nothing wrong with that. I think there's much more. It's much more fantastic to try something, and if it doesn't work, that's fine. What's the difference, right? It doesn't make you a bad person or a horrible person or and take away from your being as a human. It to me, it says, good on you for going out there and taking a risk and giving it a try. And who knows what you're going to discover? You may discover that that's your gift. Whatever that thing is you tried, that's your gift. And if that wasn't it, you try the next one, and maybe that's your gift. So I think it's important.
And those people in our culture that aren't afraid to try wild and crazy things are the ones that actually make advancements for us all, don't you think?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. What message would you like for children and adults, for that matter, to glean from the Rampart Guards?
You know, I think it's just really that the world around us isn't necessarily as boring as you think it is. So, you know, there's just so much happening, and if we can open our eyes a little bit and look beyond where we have been raised to look, there could be some really fantastic, wonderful things out there. And hopefully it's just, you know, think creatively, think with imagination, open up, don't say no to every idea that comes up, and don't say that's wrong. Say, let me think about it.
Better yet, let me play with it in my imagination and see how it runs there, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Do you think we can avoid having to act out a lot of mistakes if we run it through our imagination first to its end?
Sure, yeah, especially if you've got an imagination that lets you try all the things instead of just the one thing you've learned. Because there's lots of ways to take, you know, one of my mantras is, there's a solution to every problem. And it might not be the one that says A plus B equals C. It might be that I find out that A plus B minus 17 plus X squared is where I need to go. But if I don't think that way, if I don't let myself think that way, I won't find it. So
basically that's how Einstein probably operated, huh?
Yeah. And well, you know, the thing about imagination is it's not just something that opens up the creative juices in the arts. You know, it's not just, it doesn't mean I'm just going to tell a story. It leads to scientific discoveries. It leads to fantastic paintings, maybe new recipes. I mean, there's all sorts of things that imagination can take us to. It's not just the storytelling world. So it's so important for it to just be allowed to thrive.
Absolutely. Wendy, you and I are going to have to take another little break here. Wendy and I will be back on the flip side of this commercial break. You're listening to The Science of Magic on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net, the place where altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric create common ground for the betterment of our world. You can always listen to previous broadcasts that are very transformative and very interesting on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. Don't go away. We'll be back.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money in abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randall, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X-Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st Century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
What Happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold.
Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Wendy Terrien, author of The Rampart Guards. Wendy, a lot of times I've had people express concern when children want to spend too much time in their imagination or they entertain the possibility of myths and magics. Do you think that can be detrimental to kids?
I don't, not at all. I grew up loving myths and legends. I read all of them, the Greek legends and every story I could get my hands on, and I turned out okay. So I think it's all right. Plus, it goes back to if your imagination is active and vibrant, it's going to open up not just your creative self and your own kind of world of art or storytelling, but, we talked about scientific discoveries. You mentioned Einstein, math. I don't even like math, but I know that a lot of math comes out of just being open to that and creative and thinking and testing things in a different way. So I just think it's key to really being and doing as much as you can with what gifts you've been given.
There's an interesting thing going on our planet right now, and it's like decompartmentalizing, and different cultures are being driven out of different places and ending up every place else. And, so before we had these cultures and they had their cultural beliefs and their cultural myths, but now that we're being smooshed together, what do you see as the value of studying and playing with myths and legends from other cultures?
Oh, couldn't we just learn from that, right? I mean, a lot of times we discovered that those myths and legends are really similar to ones we've learned in our own culture. So that's interesting because we've got these universal stories that have carried across different cultures for eons. Even like the skyfish, which are one of the creatures in the Rampart Guards, there are archaeological cave drawings in, I think, Argentina from way back when that look like skyfish. So we know those have existed across different generations and also cultures. And I think that if we learn, we certainly can learn that we're all really one race, right? We're all human race. We're not really, oh, those people over there and us people over here, and you can stay on your side and we'll stay on our side. We're all really one thing, and all these stories tell us that. And so does DNA. So even from a scientific standpoint, you can look at DNA of our world, and everybody kind of comes from the same places. It's interesting.
Do you think that's why there are these themes that run through varying traditional myths and legends? It's like these different energies are represented by different deities, but they're still the same energies?
Yeah, I think that's totally possible. I mean, it's in a weird sense, it's logical, right? Even though we're talking about myths and legends, there's an element of logic running through that says, well, how else did those stories come to be so similar across cultures? There's something going on there.
Yeah, it's just universal. And I like looking at, okay, how many goddesses of the water are there? And why are they always female? That sort of thing. Of course, there's that guy with a 3-pronged sword that's the king of the water, so who knows?
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Hey, I understand your book is already a #1 bestseller. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, that was exciting to see that. I was giddy for sure.
I'll bet. When did it come out?
It came out February 26th.
Oh, and it's already a best. Wow. Congratulations again. Where can people find your book?
It's at all the places you might want it. So certainly local bookstores, if they don't carry it in stock, they can order it. But it's also Amazon and Barnes & Noble online, and even in audiobook form too. So it's available through all the audiobook outlets.
You started being fascinated with stories and storytelling very young. What advice do you give children and adults, for that matter, about being able to engage in storytelling and writing if they're so inclined?
Just do it. I remember just sitting in my room by myself and writing stories when I was little. I still have some of those notebooks, and it's so much fun to go back and look at that. I tell myself I'm going to go back and turn these into more story now. So someday I may do that, but it was such I just remember the energy of being in that story while I was little and just doing my own thing on my own. It was just a really powerful experience to be able to do that and create something.
One of the things that I've noticed as an author is that oftentimes when I'm doing things boring and repetitive, like going for a walk or washing dishes, and I've set myself down a subroutine, so I have the same way I do it every time, and that frees up my mind and my imagination, and that's when a lot of stuff comes through for me for stories. Have you found that as well?
Yeah, mine is always, I shouldn't say always, but there's often times I'm trying to fall asleep, and I've learned that I cannot let myself fall asleep if I like the idea that has just floated through my head, because I will forget it. So I have to write that down. But it happens when I'm maybe doing the dishes, I'm loading the dishwasher, or I'm in the shower, which is a little cliche, but that's really true. Falling asleep, it's those kinds of mindless moments that these other things come in.
Get the head out of the way and magic happens, right?
Exactly.
So actually, when we're starting to fall asleep, and I get a lot of that, I do most of my writing at night. If I go to bed with this is a subject matter I need to address tomorrow in class or something, then I will, as I'm starting to slip into theta, going from alpha into theta, that's when that information comes through. Do you think we're tapping into something universal when our brainwaves drop to theta?
That seems really logical to me. I haven't thought about that, but that makes sense because it's a different level that is not tuned into the daily, what I have to do right now in my daily life, to be more open there. So that makes a lot of sense.
Do you think we're able to tap in there more easily to myths, legends, and cultural representations of those things?
Yeah, I think it's like a muscle, though. And it's also like I've learned with meditation, if I don't do it all the time, it gets hard. Just like in my writing, if I'm not continually writing on a regular basis, when I go back to it, it's harder again. So I think, too, that opportunity to tap into that, again, be open and practice it on a regular basis, and I think that works really well.
Tell me, have you ever experienced what they call writer's block?
I don't believe in writer's block.
Oh, good, because I've never run into it.
Yeah, no, I've had moments where it's like, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I don't feel like that's writer's block. I'm just waiting for the rest of the story to process. And I love the experience, too, because I actually don't write the story not only from I feel like the world around me is writing it, but also the characters tell me what they're doing. So Rampart Guards, I had a whole lot different ending, I thought, in mind until I got there, and it was completely different. So there's a lot going on there.
I wonder if those characters actually exist somewhere. Don't you sometimes, with the personalities they have?
Yes. Yeah, I saw something, too, that said, what if we're all a character in a book, and when we can't find something that we went to get, we forgot why we went into a room? It's because the writer is backspacing and rewriting it.
That's a scary thought. I want to find the author of my story. I'm going to wring their neck.
Yeah. So see, not only do my characters exist somewhere else, we are someone else's characters. Now to start thinking about that really can make you go crazy.
Oh, what's scary is that's logical. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Who influenced you most in becoming an author?
I think just reading. I loved A Wrinkle in Time. I loved The Chronicles of Narnia. I loved the Lord of the Rings series. I just loved all these stories and these writers, and I read everything, and I still do. And I really think that's it. I think it's just this story. It's just the writing and the story in those worlds was really something I wanted to be part of.
Do you have anything to share with our listeners in closing?
I just thank you for having me here. I do have 2 books coming out in the series next year. So if anyone wants to keep track of that or be interested in learning more, my website or Twitter or Facebook, I'm on all those places, and I'll have information posted there.
Great. So how many books do you think are going to be in this series?
5 is the number in my head. I know 3 of them because I'm writing the other 2 right now, but I have no idea what will happen in the 2 after that.
We'll talk about multitasking. Are they weaving together?
Yeah, so the first book was Jason. In that book, he meets Sadie, his best friend now. I love Sadie so much, I didn't want to lose track of her in book 2 because Jason leaves and goes someplace else. So Sadie's getting her own book 2. I'm going to have 2 book 2s, but they're going to be written on the same timeline. Then they come back together in the end. So they start together and finish together.
Oh, isn't that full
different.
Circle?
Yeah, it's a little different than anyone's ever done, and I have to write them side by side to make sure I'm keeping everything in sync. It's been a good stretch of the brain.
Yeah, that interweaving is so multidimensional, and it really appeals to the way the young ones are coming in right now, is with the capacity to perceive on more than one level. I can't commend you enough for such beautiful work.
Thank you.
Okay. So I guess we're going to have to probably call it a close. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. Our guest this hour is Wendy Terrien, and she's is the author of The Rampart Guards, which is a series. Her website, where you can find out more about Wendy, is www.wendyterrien.com. That's TERRIEN.com. This has been The Science of Magic. Remember, you can always listen to past thought-provoking episodes for free on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge and comforted with love as you engage in the magic of your imagination.